Hello and welcome to the Grove Knits podcast. My name's Rebecca and welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. This is a podcast where I predominantly talk about my own knitting, crafting, yarn that I've actually picked up over the last little while, that type of thing. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you very much for coming back. It's great to see you. You will occasionally hear pattering of dogs. I'll pop a photo up here. You'll see I've got some dash hounds, so unfortunately dash hounds and hard floors, you'll always hear their toes. But it's lovely to have you back again, so thank you very much for coming along. So first of all, just let me show you some of the items that I've actually finished off this week. I cast on, after our last podcast, this small beanie. This is for probably the size for a young, just a child size. This is 96 stitches on 3.5mm needles, and then 4mm needles for the mane of the hat. And I've just done, as you can see, just some really simple colour work there. There's no pattern with this one. This is just my own standard beanie. I tend to do knit two togethers as my decreases along the top. I will do a pom-pom on this one in this blue. I just need to figure out where I've put the rest of that blue. And it's not in one of the buckets that I've got here with me at the moment. So as soon as I find that, I'll put a pom-pom on that and just pop that away in the gift basket, or perhaps put it on my Etsy shop to sell since it's not using a particular pattern. I can do that, so I might just put it up on my Etsy shop for sale. I tend to like to knit beanies just as in-between projects, those little palette cleansers in between things. Alright, so in our last podcast, I had only done one of these and I was about to undo my cast off, and I had said that I was going to just re-knit the top and add a rib so it didn't fold over. So I've now finished those. This one's actually still a bit damp. I've just had it sitting by the fire after I've just washed it and blocked it. So that's them. These will just simply be for me for school for those cold mornings, but I'll do a few more of these. This is taken originally from the Tin Can Knits mittens pattern, and I've just modified that with about an extra 1.5 inch ribbing, and obviously made the thumb into a fingerless and the top into fingerless with just some ribbing there. I suppose really all patterns come from somewhere, don't they? So they're finished now. So they just need to finish sitting by the fire to actually finish drying, since I've just blocked them. Okay, and what I thought we'd do is, I have a bucket here, a tub, with a whole heap of project bags in them. Now a couple of them I know what's in because I'm currently working on this one and I'm currently working on this one. But in the tub, I went through my different hidey holes last night and just grabbed all my other project bags, chucked them all in this one tub, and we're going to go through them together and figure out if I'm going to actually frog any of these or actually plan to actually finish them off, and just have a look at the works in progress I've got underway and make some decisions about it and get working on them. Okay, so this one is holding my sock. I finished one sock. So this is it here. This is made with, let me find the yarn. So the yarn for this is the same yarn just in a different colour, and it is called Socks Easy Wash, and you'll see it's an alpaca sock yarn. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, I'm interested to see how these actually wear, but it's actually knit up really nicely. So this is my stock standard vanilla sock, which is just a 6 or 7 inch leg. I do a eye of partridge heel. You can see there, it's the eye of partridge heel. Do my gusset, just come down, and my standard toe. So I finished one sock, and this is the second sock. So I've done, what's that, maybe 3 inches in total on this one. This one typically comes to school with me, and I knit on it on breaks. Okay, so the sock I will continue with. Don't know where to put it, just here for now. I then cast on this top, the Summer Souffle. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how this actually looks. Not my typical style top that I would wear for summer, but I've been seeing it done by a few people and it looks fantastic. So the Summer Souffle by Penrose Knits. It's a paid for pattern. And I'm knitting it in 100% cotton. I'm knitting it with Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton in the peacock colour. You can see there's 485 metres to a 200 gram ball. That's the colour there. It's quite a blue-green. And, oops, tangled up. Here's what I've knit so far. I haven't finished, increases yet down the chest. I think I'm only on the third lot of increases. Where have I got the back? That yellow marker's the back. So this is the front. So I'm only yay far down. But it said this is in 100% cotton, so this will be quite nice for the summer. And I think in about another 2 or 3 centimetres is where I do the detail that they get you to do to have the ruffle placed on there. Okay, so it's only a recent start. I should be a lot further along with this in the next week or so. I do keep all these on my Ravelry page as well, so you'll be able to see those. And I will link that. All right. And I've got this project bag we're about to have a look in. We'll discover this together. This is my Jones cardi, which I showed you last time, but that's the pattern there. Now I'm actually knitting mine with a lot more ease. I think I'm going for about 4 inches of ease on mine, so it's actually going to be quite nice and bulky. So that's just so you can see that there. And I have not made any progress on this since last time, but just to show you again, that's how that's looking. I've got about 6 inches, I think, knitted. But this is going to be a slower going one. Okay, now in this guy, it's only a small one. So this is the Matoto overalls. I have actually knit a bit more since we last spoke. I'm about halfway down the leg. It's such a quick knit that if I actually dedicated myself to it, I'd get it done quite quickly, but we spoke about this in the last one and my disappointment about it the last one getting felted. But I will get this done in the next couple of weeks will be my intent. It's not really something that Arlo can wear in the full of winter because I've knitted this one with 4-ply. The last set I did in some 8-ply, so DK. So it's okay, we've got a bit of time up our hands. All right, this guy here. All right. I'm thinking about frogging this. This is another knit for Arlo, and it's a cardigan. Now this was, I think it was the Tin Can Knits little cardigan, and I've done the little pockets and things here. I've only on the first sleeve, got to do the second. But I'm actually just not happy with how it's looking. Now, of course it's looking pretty crappy because I haven't finished it yet. But no, I'm not happy with more the sleeves. I really like a raglan sleeve. I'm not really into the set-in sleeves. So before I dedicate too much more time with it, I'm thinking about frogging that one back. So, but I do really like this type of yarn. You can see it's quite a nice green, and you can see when it's knitted up, it's actually got some beautiful colour through it. So, I need to give that some more thought, I think. Let me know if you have any opinions about frogging stuff back. I'd rather frog it back and not have the stress of worrying about when I'm going to get around to it. Grace really puts him in a lot of the jumpers that I knit for him, so I might actually just reuse that yarn and make a jumper instead, or a sweater. Now this guy here, I'm pretty sure I know what this is. Aha. So this is the beginning of the Litmus Cow by Jude. So this is the Litmus Cow by Jude. There's been a name change. So I'm actually doing this in some more pastel colours. So I quite like this pattern. So that one will stay where it is. This guy here. It's just in a calico bag. Alright, so I really haven't knit much, but now I know where all my missing needles are. It's obviously a garter stitch blanket of some description. I know what this was. So I think this one will be getting frogged. I started this garter stitch blanket for Grace and Arlo, and then realised that the way that Grace uses the knitted baby blankets, a proper wool one isn't going to suit her. She needs acrylic in her blankets at the moment because she, Arlo, being the age she still is still having the occasional spit ups and accidents and that type of thing. So she needs a baby blanket that she can just chuck straight in the washing machine and straight in the dryer. So I've done 2 for her, just standard garter stitch, that are in an acrylic yarn. A nice soft acrylic yarn, and she loves those because she can do that with. This is wool, and I don't think it's really going to suit her with Arlo till he's probably 3 or 4. But I did buy, this is all in this bag, so I'll put this back in my stash now, some really nice Enchanted Forest. I think that's a really pretty colour. This was a blue black. I don't know that you can really, it's not a solid black. You can see there's like bits of blue through it as well. So that was nice. Oops. A silver. And this is called Ocean Waves. So I'll put these into my DK or 8-ply stash. So this one is a frog one. And there's another set of needles I can pull back. So it looks like there's 2 projects that I'm going to frog. And pull my finger out and get on with the others. One moment, I'm just getting quite warm sitting here. We've got the fire on and it's quite hot. If you haven't seen, I've actually got quite a nice, this is a knitting necklace. It's a ball yarn with needles, quite deadly to wear it. And I'm actually wearing my Felix pullover, which is probably why I'm so hot. Okay. So we've looked at what I finished so far, which was a pair of mittens and a beanie. I'm partway through my socks. We've gone through my works in progress. Now, what I want to actually show you are some yarn acquisitions that I haven't shown you yet. Now, some of them were just on my last trip to Sydney, some a little bit before then, but I haven't taken you through some of this stuff. I also want to show you some new needles that I got and needles that I've added to, and also some shawls that I'm actually thinking about casting on because, as we've just seen, I'm now going to be getting rid of 2 projects, so I can actually now have some more that I can cast on. Okay, now I would be more than happy to hear any opinions that you have about these shawls, but let's start with this. So I'm thinking about, there's a make-along that starts, today is Thursday the 11th. This make-along starts Friday the 12th. So this is a mystery one called Sharon Air. You just need 4 skeins of yarn that have a gradient on them or some sort of fade set, and that's all that I know at the moment. So Sharon Air. We have already discussed my love for Stephen West shawls, except for the really freaky deaky ones. They're a bit too much. But I really like the look of the shawl smorgasbord. I love the detail in all of this that you can see there, as well as simply the size, because I do like to wear his across my back, crossed over the front and then tied around the back, and his shawls are a great size for that. So I'm thinking about casting on that one. Another one in the Stephen West space. Now I have knit this one before and loved it. I knit it as a 3-colour gradient. Was the Radiate shawl. Really nice and simple garter stitch shawl. But absolutely beautiful to knit, a great size, and The previous one I knitted of this, I'll pop a photo around up here of it, went from, I think, a grey, what fade did I do? A grey to a gold to a red, or they might have been flipped around. But I did a nice gradient that was actually really quite lovely. Another shawl of his that I'm thinking about doing is the BOTANIC shawl. Now, I'm actually not in love with this photo, but I have seen some others done on Ravelry that are just simply stunning. Where, a bit like the Fading Bricks shawl that I've knitted of his already, had the darker colour and then a bit in between, and then used like a fading gradient behind it. And I really love the look of those. So I'm thinking about one of those. Alternatively, an Australian designer being Amber O'Brien, and her new one, which is the Fruit Tingles shawl. Just not in love with that type of stitch for the fruit tingle part, but I could cope with it. I actually think that looks quite nice. Now the next two are a bit more structured. I do actually want to knit myself one of these. I love me an Isabel Kramer pattern. This is Indigo Frost. So I really quite like this. It's got that nice jumper feel, a little bit of colour work, nice yarn over detail. And I have already knit this one as well, but I wouldn't mind doing another version of this. Hohi's Pure Joy. And that was a really, really lovely knit. So considering one of those. Either way, I'm going to be casting another shawl. I will go through the colours with you when I get down to those parts of the tubs. Alright. So before we look at the yarn, I just want to show you some new needles that I've gotten. That last trip to Sydney, when I was at the Wool Inn in Penrith, I bought some, now I apologise, I'm going to say this wrong. I think they're Lykke needles, Lykke. So I bought two sets. I bought this set, which is their 5-inch set here. It's a beautiful wood. I've obviously got one on the needles here. One will be one of those projects. The cables are all in here. What I really like about the cables are that their particular ones spin. So it actually spins while I'm knitting. Now where that is helpful, the only thing I ever find this to actually be a bit of drama with is when I do knit beanies on those smaller 14-inch cables. If it doesn't have the spin capacity, they tend to sort of undo themselves, and I've got to retighten them regularly. So these are really lovely. Now I have found already they're actually a little bit slow to knit on. In all honesty, my favourite needles would likely be my Chow Goos, because they're nice and fast. I love the cables. But because these are all lace point, I typically, if I'm knitting too long in them, I end up with a hole in my finger because I push my needle off, and these actually will break through the skin of my finger if I'm knitting something that has a bit of tightness to it, or knitting just too long. So I find that while these are my favourite, I use them only for certain projects, because after long-term knitting, they tend to hurt my fingers. And then I bought this little set of we're just going with Lykke needles here. Now these are gorgeous, but what I didn't realise was that these were 3-inch shorties. Now again, these are a bit slower to knit with. I have realised that I really need at least 4 inches to actually grab onto properly. My hands cramp with anything less than 4 inches. But these have been fantastic for knitting sleeves, especially with some of Arlo's little jumpers. And again, cables in here, needles here. This particular type of wood is not at all like my Knit Pros, which has that extra bit of gloss on them, so the Knit Pros tend to slide a bit better. These are a bit more grippy with the yarn. My standard shorties are in here, and these are all the 4-inch tips, which I quite like. And I bought some zings to go in with that one. So while I have my, do you mind, Jarvis? While I have my interchangeables, I also quite like to use fixed when I'm doing beanies. So I've got all the different sizes here that I just pop in that container, Luckily these all have their, well, Zing's easy because Zing, it's a certain colour for a certain size. So for example, no matter what, I know that a green is a 3mm, that this colour pink is a 5mm. So their colours stay the same no matter what you're using. And this guy here is where I hold the needles, which are the workhorses that I use day in, day out. It just sort of opens up. So this is where I keep the ones that I'm using most of the time. I'll come here first. If I know that I'm going to need to use sharps, I'll grab my chow goos. But this is where I have my workhorse needles that I'm using all the time. 14-inch cables there. The rest of my cables are in this zipper pocket here. Okay, so let's talk about some yarn acquisitions. Just trying to figure out where I'm going to put this stuff as I finish. Now, my last trip to Bendigo Woolen Mills was I think only last week, maybe the week before. I am particularly taken with the nice golden browns. These are 2 balls of 4-ply, so fingering weight. They're 720 metres a ball. And this one is rustic mustard. So I'll get an entire sweater out of these two. Okay. I recently bought these 2 balls of yarn. They're the same brand. You see this, the 2 different colourways. It's by SHAWL Yarns, Zauber Ball Crazy. I think it's called Route 66. And presumably this is actually how it will knit up in this kind of striping. So Route 66, just here. So it says 75% strong quality superwash and 25% polyamide. Herbstonne, something along those lines. I then purchased some Noro. I've not had Noro before. So I have 2 balls of Noro. Now this is my big mistake. I've bought 1 ball. These aren't going to go together. I don't know what on earth what am I meant to do with 1 ball of yarn. Alright, so these are silk garden sock. However, it feels so rough, and I can't see, mind you, it might be a bit like that alpaca sock yarn. From the look of this, I don't see how there's no elasticity in this. I don't know how this is going into a sock. So I might need to use this for a shawl. This one too, these are both Noros, 40% wool, 25% silk, 25% polyamide, 10%, can't be mohair, it is, 10% mohair. All right. So that will be interesting. Don't know what I'm going to do with those. Then I saw this beauty. This is a whole shawl skein. This is 150 grams. And this is, again, by the cat people. SHAWL. This is a Zauber Flower Pro. That's how it's going to knit up. 150 grams. And it's called Belladonna. At least I can read that one. What I didn't realise was that this was the same brand. These were from 2 different shops. I then have this beauty here. Fantasy Island, Black Dragon. This is a sock yarn as well, and I think this will be a pair of socks. I'm in love with these. I think this will be the next pair of socks I cast on as soon as I finish these alpaca socks. This is some more sock yarn here. It won't be socks. I'll pop this in a shawl. And this is just a knit picks. I've balled this up because I was about to cast on a pair of socks with it. But I'm thinking of putting it in a shawl, and we're about to now look at those shawl colours. Okay, so this is with a thought to Stephen West shawls. I can go variations of blues. But my worry is that this is a little dark. But we can go variations of blues. Now I do have some more neutrals that I can pop in here. But that just gives you an idea there. I can then look at variations of neutrals, and again I could also put the colour pops in there as well. This one is a ring-in of a different dyer. I then have some pinks. Now I'm not a huge pink fan, so I would possibly consider doing it as a colour pop. But that's them there. I do really like this one and this one here. And then I have some other oddballs here. So this one is called Funfetti. And it's dyed by the Fortune Yarn Company. In my basic neutrals, I don't really have anything that's quite a plain colour. They've all got a lot of colour on their own within themselves. So I worry about having them with some of those colour pops. But I definitely don't want to buy more yarn, so I want to get a shawl, but out of those colours. So again, not sure if I actually just do something in blues, in pinks, in straight neutrals, blending of them all. Because even the pinks, I said, on their own, they're truly beautiful colours. I mean, that will knit up brilliantly. So that's a Knit Picks, and its colourway is... What is your colourway, my dear? Mississippi. It's Hawthorn Fingering, Mississippi. And as you can see, it's truly, truly beautiful. But again, I've done that mistake where I buy individually. This one's called Brooklyn. So this one's got more of the greys as opposed to the greens. If you do happen to see some fantastic shawls that will actually suit some of these, please let me know, because I'm looking for something at the moment. I do think that I'll grab 4 of these and just do that make along. I might just buy that pattern. I think it's about $12 on Ravelry. Buy that and do the make along. Fingers crossed I don't get burnt again. That last make along I did just about did my head in. All right. So that's the fingering yarns. Let me put this aside. Okay, so just finishing off yarn acquisitions now. These are in DK weight, or what we call here 8-ply. You saw Arlo's jumper in the last episode. I'll pop a picture up here so you can have a look again. This is the yarn I had for it. So that jumper that sweater used 2 balls and about a half. I've got this little bit left. Now this yarn was actually quite expensive and was more than I would normally pay. These were... I didn't realise when I had said I'll just grab the whole bag, but then I kind of felt committed, so I just bought it all anyway. And I'll make use of it because I've got a grandson. I'll always knit it up. These were $10.50 a ball for 50 gram balls. Now, having said that, it is the most beautiful feeling yarn. It's simply amazing. As you saw in the jumper, it actually knits up in that fair old look. You know, not perfect, not fantastic, but enough for a kid's jumper. I'm not going to take my time and knit a fair old jumper for someone of his age, or even probably not until maybe Arlo's a teenager, because it's a lot of work for a kid that's just going to jump around and ruin it. So anyway, so this is Loyal Baby Prince, and it is shade. You have to forgive me here, I can't see with my glasses. This is an old age thing. 81532. But it's beautifully soft, really nice to knit with a really lovely feel through my fingers. For a sweater for myself, I bought 4 balls of this. You can see it's quite a caramel with a green tinge through it. It is called Marble Glow Amber Light. I'll be very interested to see how this knits up. I'm actually going to swatch this. I just want to see how the colour comes together. So a 200 gram ball of this is 400 meters. So I've got 4 balls, so 1600 meters. So this will get me something quite substantial. Really good weight for our winter down here. In the Bendigo Woolen Mills yarns, I did mention that I like my rustics. I like my non-superwash. And this Bloom range is non-superwash. So I have Bloom Olive Garden, which is really pretty. If you haven't tried their Bloom ranges, I really recommend them. They knit up beautifully. Golden Hues. This is that orange that I used in Damien's, that yellow colourwork hat that I did. More Bloom, but I've obviously knit with part of this. More Bloom again, Silver Fox. I have a few balls of this one. And that's all of the Bloom. And then we have their Tweed range. I've got a few balls of this one. I love their tweeds. It is incredibly soft. So this one is just blended tweed rouge. It's got great flex through that. All right, and this one here, I've already knit a big jumper out of this one for one of my sons. Now this is part of their printed range, and while it just looks like it's simply grey, when you actually knit this one up, this one here, it just says printed special, but it's actually got a very pale pride rainbow that actually knits up through the yarn. While it's incredibly pale and very subtle, it has the pride colours going through this when it's actually printed up. Okay, so that is the yarn that I had to show you. So I really would love some feedback around shawls. I'm going to do that make along, but I really want to cast on another Stephen West. I'm really leaning towards doing his big new one. So I'm really thinking about having a look at this shawl smorgasbord, purely for the fact that I can possibly use with this a lot of those colours that I've got just sort of hanging around that I maybe won't put in other projects. And it's such a great learning technique shawl. And I've got to admit, his shawl, the bricks one that I wear, because I wear it to school, it's probably what I get the most comments about from my students. My students are always blown away that I knit, first of all, because they see me knitting regularly. I'll knit in my spare time. But the fact that I actually wear something like that they feel is quite a fashionable shawl, it's not just something that their grandmother would knit, that I wear that and that I knitted that myself, it's quite a talking point. And I think that this would be the same. And what is really fascinating, especially for me being a teacher, is this notion that there's a whole new generation of young girls and boys, because I get interest from both sides, who have actually asked me to teach them how to knit. So it's quite fascinating to see their interest in some of these crafts. Thank you again for joining me. I apologise that this has been a little bit rambly. But again, thank you very much for coming to my channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please, I would love some feedback about shawls, because truly I'm stuck. I will do the make along. We'll see if it burns me again. And I've got some more beanies I need to get done. Have a lovely afternoon, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.